Well, good morning everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, which is entitled An Introduction to the Cloud. This is the first in a series of 6 webinars which are being brought to you by the Optimising Business Broadband Programme in Shropshire and Staffordshire. My name is Martin King-Turner and I'm an independent IT consultant from the National B2B Centre. And my passion is ensuring small and medium-sized businesses get the maximum value from every pound they spend on IT. And in this webinar today, I want to help you understand a little bit about the cloud and hopefully help you understand how you can get as much value as you can from using it. Now, as we go through the webinar, if you have any questions, please can you use the chat function on the GoToWebinar control panel. It should be one of the boxes down towards the bottom of the panel. You can type their questions if you have them as we go through, and I will do my best to make a little bit of time at the end of the session to pick up those questions and answer them for you on air. So, here's what we're going to look at today. We're going to talk a little bit about what is this thing called the cloud. We'll look at the opportunities and benefits that it offers. From a small business point of view. We will talk about some of the challenges and some of the issues. I'm not going to tell you that everything about the cloud is great. There are some challenges, there are some issues, there are some things that you need to consider when you're going to use it in your business, and we will talk about those. We will talk about the types of services that are available across the cloud, again in the small business context. And we'll look at typical cloud usage in small businesses. Now, as I said, this is very much an introductory webinar, and as we go through, I will be pointing out various places where subsequent webinars in this series will give you more detail in various areas. But before we dive too much into the cloud, I just want to say a few words about broadband and the Optimising Business Broadband Programme in Shropshire and Staffordshire. In Shropshire and Staffordshire there are 2 programmes which are looking at the fibre infrastructure, one called Connecting Shropshire and the other called Superfast Staffordshire. And these programmes are designed to help small businesses get access to broadband where the commercial providers, people such as BT or Virgin Media or those kind of companies, where those kind of companies currently aren't able to offer a service. Both programs are funded by the council, also with input from BT and an organisation called BD UK, which is Broadband UK, which is a UK-wide organisation which is working with pretty much every council across England to roll out or make accessible fibre broadband, superfast broadband to, as I say, to premises where the commercial providers don't see a business case, aren't able to offer it on a commercial basis. In Shropshire, it's, as you can see, £26 million going into this. In Staffordshire, it's £27 million, and in other counties across England, it's similar sums of money. And the intention, the aim, is in Shropshire by spring 2016 to have 93% of premises with access to a fibre-based network, and in Staffordshire by spring 2016 to have 97% of premises access to a fibre-based network. And if you are in one of the unlucky places where you're not going to get access to the fibre-based network by that time, everybody will have a minimum of 2 megabits per second, even if it's through the existing copper network. And if you want to know more about one or other of those programs, then the websites are down the bottom of the screen, connectingshropshire.co.uk and superfaststaffordshire.co.uk. Please go to those websites where there's a lot more detail, including maps of the areas where the connectivity is going to be made available. In terms of the Optimising Business Broadband Programme, then that's a European funded project. ERDF money based in Shropshire and Staffordshire runs from now until June 2015. And the basic aim of this project is to help small businesses understand the benefits of using fibre broadband, and ultimately to encourage and enable you to take up fibre broadband connectivity and get the best out of it, ultimately in terms of bottom line impact, improving your profitability, helping you grow your business. Within the project, there's four types of support. There are a series of events that are going on around Shropshire and Staffordshire to help raise awareness. There is a number of webinars such as this one, and also material online on the website, on the optimisingbusinessbroadband.co.uk website, to, as it says, practical learning, to actually give you more detail, more information, hints, tips, workbooks, guides, all sorts of really good stuff there to help you make the best use of fibre broadband. Optionally, for some businesses, there is the opportunity to have face-to-face consultancy support. So people such as myself and a number of colleagues are available to come and visit you and help you use the connectivity, use the superfast broadband in a number of different ways, and I'll be alluding to some of those as we go through this webinar. And also there is additional follow-up and specialist training available for those that have been through the other three stages. Again, a lot more detail online, so if you want to find out more about that, please take a good look through the Optimising Business Broadband website. I guess you've already found that website to register on today's webinar, but please take a look around the other sections on that website. Look at the events, look at the online material. There's a wealth of information there that will help you when considering and using and taking advantage of superfast broadband. There's also a Twitter handle at ABBShropStaffs. Please follow us on Twitter. All the information, all the events, all the activities of the project are publicised there. Okay, so why should we care about this superfast broadband? So what? Well, there's a few statistics on your screen, but it's certainly true to say that every small business I've worked with, that's dozens and dozens. Every small business that I've worked with has definitely seen business benefit in some way, shape, or form from moving from standard broadband to superfast broadband. Those benefits can come in many ways. It could be about cost saving, it could be about being able to have more flexible working, it could be being able to back up your data onto the cloud, it could be about being able to collaborate with customers and suppliers, other people, other companies. There's a myriad of different manifestations of this, but the headline statistic across the country is that 6 out of 10 small businesses are growing due in part to having better broadband connectivity. I would turn that around and say that in 2014, and certainly as we look ahead in the next 1, 2, 3 years, businesses that don't have superfast broadband connectivity are going to be at a disadvantage. I think it's just undoubtedly true that you are going to be handicapping your business if you don't get yourself access to superfast broadband if it's possible. As it says, 83% of businesses saving time and money. And according to the Lloyd's UK index, there's been £19 billion of revenue growth, or there is about £19 billion of revenue growth across the UK as an opportunity for companies to take advantage of if they increase their digital maturity, which is partly about superfast broadband, but it's also very much about not only having that connectivity, it's about how you use it. And that's what we're going to talk about for the rest of this webinar. So, before we dive too deep into it, let's just make sure we all understand what we mean by cloud computing. If you look it up online or in a textbook or talk to people, you'll probably get a definition something like the one on the screen here. So, a means of obtaining some form of IT service or resources over the internet. The key thing there really being it's about getting IT services, and in particular it's about getting them when you're connected across the internet. Now, you may be connected via Wi-Fi or many different ways, but that connectivity, and in particular the speed of the connectivity, is a key factor in what sort of services you will be able to take advantage of. And while definitions like that are all very well and probably are definitely correct, the one that I think is more interesting is this one. It says the cloud is a way of having IT as a utility, IT as the fourth utility. And I use utility here in the sense of the other three being water, electric and gas. Now that may sound to you a little bit strange or a little bit futuristic, but it's not. It's not at all futuristic, and in fact it's exactly what's happening now if you think about what happens with smartphones. Anybody who has a smartphone, and that's probably most people in today's world, if you think about it, I'm not talking about the smartphone to make phone calls, but if you think about all the apps you have on a smartphone, almost all of those use the cloud, require the cloud to do anything useful. If your smartphone has no data connectivity, so you don't have a 3G signal, you don't have a Wi-Fi signal, what can your apps do? The answer is probably not a lot. You won't be able to check your email, you won't be able to check the weather, you won't be able to use Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or most of the other apps you've got on your smartphone. If they don't have access to the internet, they don't really do very much. And that is because it is an example of what we're talking about here with cloud computing. All that stuff that happens behind the scenes across the internet to make your smartphone work properly, to make those apps do something, that is what cloud is all about. It's about providing access to those IT services to make the device in your hand work. Another example of this, another way of thinking about this, was highlighted to me the other day, in fact, when I discovered that my landline at home had a fault on it. I discovered that I wasn't able to receive incoming calls. And I only discovered that because somebody had been trying to call me, and they ended up calling me on the mobile, saying, "Are you aware that your home phone number's out of order?" And to be quite frank, I wasn't, and it may well have been out of order for a number of days, so far as I know, which set me thinking that today I don't depend on that. Whereas if the broadband connection had been unavailable, which luckily it wasn't, but if my broadband connection had been unavailable, I reckon it would have taken me or somebody else in my family, particularly one of my children, probably something of the order of 1 or 2 minutes to realise that that was unavailable, compared with perhaps days for my landline. And I realised that perhaps comparing it to a utility, is that it really is a utility. Because if I have a power cut in my home and the electricity's off, then that's probably the first thing I will realise, and I'll realise that probably within seconds. But the next thing I will probably realise I don't have access to is the internet. And that probably would come, may or may not come, before I realise my water's been cut off. And it certainly would come before I realise my gas had been cut off. So I do believe that IT really has become, it's not becoming, has become, is already a utility. And thinking about IT as a utility is a really useful way of understanding and starting to think about how the cloud can help your business. And if I look at what companies are doing in terms of their IT and moving their IT to the cloud, this is a survey from the end of last year, which looks at what companies are doing in terms of their IT infrastructure, in terms of the systems they're using. And what we see, if you look on the right-hand side of that chart, 60 to 100% cloud-based, is that at the end of last year, 22%, that's nearly a quarter of companies, had 3/4 to all of their IT already in the cloud. And that certainly chimes with my experience. I'm working with a number of companies at the moment. One particular company comes to mind. They're a startup company. They're quite a well-funded startup company, so they have about 15 people working in that company. They've been going about 9 months. And they have absolutely all their IT in the cloud. They do not have any on-site servers at all. So, of course, they have their devices, they have their laptops, they have their tablets, they have their smartphones, but they have no servers whatsoever in that company. So every system, from their office system to their CRM system to their manufacturing system, they're a manufacturing company, to their finance system, bookkeeping, everything is in the cloud, 100% in the cloud. And the speed with which they've been able to implement that infrastructure or get those systems up and running is amazing. And it's because they're cloud-based. They haven't had to worry about all the investments in IT infrastructure that people would have done historically. And looking at this graph, I am sure that when the 2014 survey comes out towards the end of this year, that the number of companies that are going to be 60 to 100% cloud-based will have increased again. I'm sure it could well be somewhere nudging up to 30%, I would imagine. And the numbers that are in the 0% cloud-based, which are showing as 10% on this chart, I think that will fall. And in 3 or 4 years, I think the number of companies where they've got nothing in the cloud will probably be close to 0. So why is everybody doing this? Well, there's a number of reasons. The first reason that I'd like to talk about is cost. Now, please don't misunderstand me. I am not going to say that it is always cheaper in all circumstances to have your IT in the cloud compared with having IT on your premises. Often it is cheaper, but it's not purely about cost in terms of the pound note cost. What is absolutely true with cloud is that it is reducing what I call capital outlay, so your capital costs. So you do not have to make capital purchases, in particular things such as servers and all the infrastructure that goes around servers, the people to support them, the backup devices, the networking, all of that stuff. You do not have to make those capital investments. And for most small businesses, that is a really attractive proposition, because most small businesses find it hard, of course they do, when faced with the requirement to invest £5,000, £10,000, £15,000, £20,000 to invest in servers. Those are large sums of capital money which most small businesses wish they didn't have to make. And cloud is absolutely a way of meaning you do not have to have and make those capital investments. Secondly, on cost, is that the cloud model is pay as you go. Now, it is true that a number of cloud services, in fact many cloud services, are entirely free of charge, or they're free of charge to use at a basic level, and that's of course fantastic. So then there really is no cost whatsoever. But many cloud services are, you do have to pay for, but they're all charged for on a pay-as-you-go basis, which means that the more you use, the more it costs, absolutely. But if you think about it, if you're using more of a particular cloud service because you've got more users, or you're using more storage space, or bigger database, whatever it is, hopefully you are using more because you are doing more in your business. And if you're doing more in your business, hopefully that means there's more revenue coming into your business. So what I'm saying is, yes, the costs can go up as you use more, but hopefully that is in times when your business is doing well, so you're actually able to fund those bigger costs. On the converse side of that coin, because it's pay as you go, if you're using less, because times are quieter in your business, then your costs will be less. So yes, you've got less revenue coming into your business, but your IT costs have reduced as well. And typically cloud-based systems where they are paid for are billed on a monthly basis. So your costs very directly reflect your usage, and hopefully your usage is reflected in terms of your business and your ability to pay. If you compare that, of course, with having to make capital investments in servers, if you buy a server, you have to make that capital, you have to pay for it, either as a lump sum or through some finance scheme, but it's a fixed cost. And if your business grows, then you're faced with further capital investment. If you hit if business is quieter, then in general you're not able to say, oh, I don't need half of this server, let's sell half of it back. You can't do that. It's a fixed cost, and you have to finance that somehow. Whereas cloud, it's pay as you go. And the other point I have there about cost is that the support costs, and by support costs I mean the IT support costs, so the IT people who are required to come and keep servers running and update software and troubleshoot and install upgrades, all of those kind of things. Again, you don't have to worry about those if you're in a cloud environment, because the cloud provider is doing all of that stuff. You can concentrate on just running your business. You do not have to take on board the support costs of running an IT infrastructure. The next area of benefits I've called flexibility and efficiency, but this is the idea that with a cloud system, it's accessible from anywhere as long as you've got internet access. So whether you're in your office, whether you're at home, whether you're in a hotel, wherever you are, so long as you've got internet access, you will have access to your cloud systems and the data and the information that's contained within them. So it makes mobile working, flexible working from home a whole pile easier, because you're not in that scenario where you go, oh, I'd like to work from home today, but guess what? The spreadsheet or the document or the presentation I need to work on is on my computer in the office. If it's in the cloud, it is equally accessible from wherever you are. It's also available on demand. It says you can get started in minutes, so if you want to start using a cloud-based system, typically you will be doing it, you'll go to their website, you will click through a few things and maybe enter a credit card number, and then you're up and running. You don't have to think about buying the software, installing the software, getting somebody to come and set up and configure the software and all of that stuff. It's all done for you. And the bottom one that I think is an area where there's huge potential for the cloud and for businesses, small businesses, to make better use of the cloud is about sharing information both in your business with colleagues, but also outside of your business, particularly with maybe other businesses that you work with. If you're in the professional services type business, then a lot of what you'll be doing, you'll be probably collaborating with other companies, other people on particular projects, and sharing that information and being able to share that information easily with partners, with colleagues, potentially with customers, and even with suppliers. Opens up whole new areas of opportunity and efficiency in terms of the way you work. And that might be sharing on project teams, or it might be being able to reach out and service customers who are potentially based overseas and be able to support their needs through cloud-based systems, sharing of information, and indeed through technology like the one we're using right now, through sort of webinars, online video conferencing, all of those kind of technologies, all of which are made possible by the cloud and superfast access. The third area I'd like to talk about on benefits is business productivity. So the net of this one is that you don't have to spend your time worrying about and managing your IT infrastructure and the hardware and the software and the upgrades and the troubleshooting and the support and all the rest of it, because that's what the cloud service providers do. You focus on doing what you need to do to use these systems to actually get on and run your business and deliver your products and services to your customers. And that's not just me saying all those things. Here's another survey which looked at the businesses that have invested in cloud. Why did they do that? The one that came out top was, as you can see, ability to cut costs. We talked about that. The second one, better option for multiple reasons. That's a good answer, isn't it? But there are multiple reasons. Reduced capital expenditure, you can see. Adding new features, adding new capabilities, creating new offerings and services. There's a raft of different reasons why people have invested in cloud, but all of them come back to those, to the cost, the productivity, to the efficiency and the flexibility that I talked about on the previous charts. So let's just take a little look at how this cloud works. This is not going to be a technical session, but just to give people a flavour in case anybody's not familiar with it. Here's a little diagram of the cloud. So here's what we have as users of the cloud. We have our laptops, we have our phones, we have our tablets, we have our desktop PCs, all the devices that we use to connect to the cloud or the internet. And then the heavy lifting, the horsepower, the place where all the action happens is in these places called the data center, where the servers and the databases and the storage, that's where that all lives. And they're not on your premises, they're out there somewhere. And these data centers, I don't know whether anybody has ever visited a data center or seen a data center, but these data centers are huge places. This is a data center, this is one of Facebook's data centers. It's located in Canada, this particular one. And as I think you can probably see, to get a feeling for the scale of this, these are cars down here in the car park. So this is a massive building which is full of servers, computers, tens of thousands of servers. And if you look inside one of these places, they look a little bit like this. This is a photograph from a Microsoft data center, in fact, and each one of these little devices here, well, they're not that little, in fact, they're about 19 inches wide in 19-inch racks. Each of these is a server. So this will be probably 12-15 feet high here from the floor to the ceiling. Each one of these is a server. Racks and racks and racks and racks of them. Tens of thousands of them in these data centers. This is a picture from under the floor of the same data center, and these are all the pipes for cooling. Because keeping tens of thousands of servers cool is no mean feat. And this is a photo from a data center in London from a company called Rackspace. And these aren't operational servers. This is just their stack of spare servers. So these are servers waiting. So in case any of the operational servers fail, then they have these servers on standby, and they can unplug one from the rack, plug one in. The data center stays running, and you and me as users of that cloud service will be none the wiser that that's what had ever happened. Now, what I want to do is just show you a little video, which is actually a video taken inside one of Google's data centers, which shows a little bit more about what I've shown in those photos, and also give you some feel for some of the security measures that these companies take in their data centers.
go inside Google's cloud. The tech giant has 12 data centers around the world. They are the engines that make Google run, and they contain a lot of sensitive information about you.
Now, for the first time, the company has invited cameras inside its top-secret facility in North Carolina. Michelle Miller went along for this story that you'll only see here on CBS This Morning.
With all the patrols, fences, barbed wire, and steel barriers designed to slice through cars, it would be easy to mistake this place for Fort Knox.
Hello?
But it's really a Google data center.
Yes, ma'am. You have your ID on you.
For many years, the company refused to admit these even existed. Even today, no visitor may enter without first signing a non-disclosure agreement.
Just saying that you're not going to take any unauthorized pictures, or you're not going to talk about anything that you see.
Inside, security is just as tight.
Thank you.
Retina scans determine who has access, something even many Google executives don't have. Every single person entering and leaving is tracked. If more than one person enters through the doors at once, alarms sound. Have you ever had a breach at this facility?
No.
Never.
No. Let's go in.
Our tour guide is Google's Senior Vice President, Urs Hotzle, known for his trademark red socks and one of the company's first employees.
My first job title was search engine mechanic, and I picked that because everything was broken. Google was down, searches took 5 seconds.
Thank you. Now Hotzle is in charge of building and running all of Google's data centers. In the industry, you're known as the infrastructure czar.
Mm-hmm.
Flattered by that?
Yes.
Yes. Our first stop, the networking room. It's like air traffic control. Every time a user asks Google for something, that request is first routed here and then directed to another computer on the server floor. How many servers are on this floor?
So today we have 55,200.
The sheer size and scale of the place is breathtaking. Employees must wear earplugs to protect their hearing from the constant whir of tens of thousands of machines.
So each of these servers basically is like a PC, except somewhat more powerful.
And when one of those servers goes down, we saw firsthand what it takes to repair or replace them.
Okay.
Finally, you can plug in that power.
Right here. How about that? Recently, the industry came under fire for being energy hogs, consuming huge amounts of electricity to keep servers running in air-conditioned rooms. On our tour, Google was very eager to show us how they were reducing their carbon footprint here at the data centers. That's because the company is very protective of its green image, according to Wired Magazine's Stephen Levy. He has covered Google for years and also got a tour of the Lenore Data Center.
The opening up of data centers really comes from their feeling that they can't keep this to themselves.
Google reduced a lot of its energy consumption by simply raising the temperature on the server floor from a chilly 68 degrees to a balmy 80.
We're estimating that we saved over $1 billion in the history of Google through these efficiency measures.
At Lenore, Google says only 10% of the electricity is not used to power its servers. Another Google innovation, replacing wasteful air conditioners with a water-based cooling system. But for all of the company's efforts to become energy efficient, a lot of their power still comes from non-renewable sources.
The power here is coal. The power here comes from whatever the local utility provides.
Which isn't clean energy.
Which in North Carolina is about 2/3 coal. We are currently at about 35% of renewable energy, and we're aiming to get eventually to 100%.
Google says this is the only time they'll allow TV cameras inside their server floor. But in an effort to be more open, they say they will put up video and pictures of all their data centers on their website.
It's amazing how all of this works and that it works at all. And the fact that they always do is really amazing.
For CBS This Morning, Michelle Miller, Lenore, North Carolina.
It's interesting to see inside, but I wonder if it addresses some of the privacy concerns that people have about Google.
Well, it's interesting you said that because Michelle actually came out with a printout of your whole search history.
We'll be looking at that later.
Okay.
Okay. I hope you found that interesting. I find that fascinating to just get a feel for the scale of and the complexity and the sheer size of these data centers, and to think that it's that kind of technology that powers. If we go to what we now start to take for granted, back to that utility idea. So the idea we go to Google and we enter a search and we expect the results to come back instantaneously, which of course it does. But it's that kind of infrastructure that sits behind it that's making all this stuff possible. Okay, let's just remind ourselves or cover off the basic characteristics then of cloud services. We've talked about quite a few of these as we've gone through already. So the first and most key one is that the software is operated on servers controlled by the provider in the data centers, the places that we've just been looking at. The second one is that you are billed according to your usage, so it is a pay-as-you-go model. Those two we've talked about already. The next one is that if you're using a software service on the cloud, then it's the provider, the cloud service provider, that keeps that software up to date. So you are not having to update your software to make sure you've got the most current version. That happens for you. So if you're using, let's say, Google Mail, Gmail as an example, if Google upgrade, enhance, improve Gmail, they do that, and the next time you log in, you just get access to the up-to-date and enhanced version. You're not having to worry about making those upgrades to servers in your own company. The fourth one is the one that people quite rightly think quite a lot about, is that you are reliant on the provider to keep your data secure. Your data is in those data centers. Now, I will say a little bit more about security a little later in this webinar, but I'll also just highlight to you that one of the later webinars in this series, I shall be focusing entirely on data security and some of the legal issues around cloud computing, particularly things like data protection. So if you've got an interest or questions in those areas, then I would invite you to register on the data security webinar that's coming up in 3 or 4 weeks' time. The provider, of course, manages all the hardware, all those tens, hundreds of thousands of servers, those multi-million, billion-pound investments that they've made. That's up to them to manage all of that. We've talked about the fact that cloud is accessible from anywhere, but of course you do have to have an internet connection. And it is the quality of service you're going to get across the cloud, and whether the things you can do and what's realistic and usable does, of course, depend on the bandwidth, how fast that internet connection is. And in general, it's probably a bit of a truism, but in general, you can't really have too much bandwidth, so the faster connection you can have, the better it will be, not just because things will respond faster, but because other things become available, things such as running video conferences or something like that across on the internet. If you've got a super fast connection, it's absolutely no problem at all. If you've got a really slow connection, then it just may not be feasible. To go back to my utility analogy, compare it with electricity. If you think super fast access is probably the equivalent of having certainly 13 amp, but 3-phase power coming into your building, so pretty much whatever electrical machinery you may wish to use, you can use it. Whereas if you've got a slow broadband connection, it would be the equivalent of having your electricity supply limited to maybe 1 or 2 amps. So you could run some light bulbs and things, but there would be many electrical appliances and electrical pieces of equipment in your business that you just wouldn't be able to operate. And it's the same idea that as we think about and as we see broadband becoming a utility, then if you're not on superfast, as I said at the start of this webinar, if you're not on superfast, you will be disadvantaged from the business point of view. And the final cloud service characteristic, just to complete the set, is that it's very much a self-service model. So if you want to use a cloud service, then it is down to you. You go to a website, you sign up for it, and you use it. And talking of cloud services, there are three categories of cloud services. The first one, and the most common one, most common when we in a small business context, is the so-called software as a service, or SaaS, or SaaS. You may have seen this referred to in various places on the internet, sometimes in the media. But also what software as a service means is that basically your cloud service provider is providing some kind of IT application that runs in their data centers, and you access it and use it via the internet. So a simple example would be a cloud-based mail system, something like Gmail or Yahoo Mail or Hotmail, something like that. That is software as a service. In that case, it's an email software, and it's provided to you as a service. You connect to it, you use it, and all you need is an internet connection and a browser. You don't install any email software on your computers, on your phone, on your tablet. The second one is infrastructure as a service. Less common in the small businesses using this, but this is the idea that you can actually, there are providers out there who will give you access to computers, processors and storage across the internet, and then it's up to you to use those in whatever way you want. So you install software on them and you operate them as you want. So it's like having your own server, but physically the server isn't sat in your office. The server is sat in a data center somewhere. And for completeness, the third and least common area in terms of small businesses is something called platform as a service, which is sort of intermediate really between software as a service and infrastructure as a service, and that is where you're using the cloud service provider's environment to develop and run your own applications. So that's really where you would go if you are a computer programmer and you want to write an application for whatever reason. The two most common ones there are the Microsoft platform called Windows Azure and the Google platform, which is called the Google App Engine. As I say, software as a service is by far the most common type of cloud service used by small businesses, and there are thousands, in fact tens of thousands of software, cloud-based software applications available. There's just a few on this slide here. They're some of the more common ones that I see small businesses using, but this is absolutely the tip of the iceberg. There are literally tens of thousands of these software applications. And if we look at what people are typically doing with them, then the top one, the top two, business productivity and email, so that is using cloud for email and for office type applications. That's the most common use of cloud, and that includes things such as using it for backup and things like that. But it's by no means limited to that. Web presence, a fairly obvious one. In fact, I don't quite understand in this survey why web presence isn't nearly 100%, because the idea that any small businesses would run their own web server on the server on their own premises doesn't make much sense to me, but there you go. But looking further down the list, web-based CRM, so using CRM systems. Again, looking further down the list, ERP systems if you're in manufacturing, using web-based manufacturing systems. Anybody who's listening into this webinar at the moment who's interested in either of those topics, by the way, CRM or ERP, again, there are webinars later in this webinar series, one specifically about cloud-based CRM and another one specifically about cloud-based ERP. So please make sure you register and join us for those webinars if those areas are of interest. Just to get you a feel for it, infrastructure as a service, if you went to an infrastructure as a service provider, here's one, there's many of them. This one is we call elastic hosts. But what you will see is what they give you is access to effectively configure your own server. So, and it's literally by sliders. So how fast do you want the processor to go, how much memory, what sort of disk drives, what operating system do you want on it, all sorts of maybe sort of technical stuff. But the idea is, and the ability here is, that if you want access to a server of that kind of capacity and configuration and capability, you literally slide the sliders, fill in the blanks on the screen, press OK, put in your credit card number, and there you go. You will have access to that server, and it will take you probably less than a minute to do that. Very briefly, I've mentioned platform as a service, so that's this kind of stuff where you basically get access to a programming environment, which you need to be a computer programmer to make use of. So as I say, platform as a service is less relevant to small businesses. So what do I see? How do I see small businesses using the cloud typically? Well, I see it in 6 areas characterized on this triangle. At the bottom layer is the connection layer. So that is, what kind of connection do you have to the internet? And as I've already said a number of times, the faster the better, and if you can get super fast access, either through a commercial provider, or if you're in Staffordshire or Shropshire through the Connecting Shropshire and Super Fast Staffordshire project, I would strongly advise you to look into that, because it opens up a whole world of opportunity to you in terms of using the cloud in better ways for your business. And to look at, just highlight some of these areas, communication, so that is using the cloud to communicate with people. Some obvious examples there are things like email, so Google Mail, Yahoo Mail, using Microsoft Mail, but also to communicate people like we are now, through webinars, through online video conferencing, sharing desktops, being able to share people's computer desktops to make presentations, being able to make presentations to clients and potential clients, saving you the time and expense of travel, being able to reach out overseas without having to get on an aeroplane and physically go there all the time. Many aspects of communication are enabled by broadband and the internet, but are made much slicker, and much more powerful and much richer communication can happen if you've got super fast access. The next area is community, and this is the whole area of using the internet for social media, so LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter and the like. I'm not going to go into social media on this webinar. Again, there's another webinar later in the series that looks at both the community area and indeed the content area, and in particularly the web content area and analytics. So there's a webinar that covers both of these areas in and around digital marketing, and that's coming up in 5 or 6 weeks' time. Excuse me. The next area is what I call collaboration. So that is working with, and we talked about it briefly earlier, being able to work with your colleagues, your partners, your suppliers, your customers, and share information and work collaboratively with them. A huge area, and this area in particular is going to be the subject of my next webinar, where I'm going to be talking about running your small business in the cloud. And typical small business applications in this area are things like Dropbox, many of you may be using it, but also Google Apps and Microsoft Office 365. And as I say, the next webinar in this series, a week today, will be focusing particularly on this area and these kind of applications, and how to make best use of those when you have super fast broadband connectivity. And then the final area is what I've called commerce, and that is everything from sort of e-commerce and taking payments and credit card payments over the internet with services such as PayPal, but also actually using cloud-based services to run and manage your business. Xero, if you haven't heard of it, is a cloud-based finance and bookkeeping system, increasingly popular. It does the same kind of things as Sage or Sage Instance, but it does it entirely cloud-based. Sage also have a cloud-based product called Sage One. Zoho provides CRM functionality and other functionality, and NetSuite is an example of an ERP system. So again, a whole broad swathe of opportunities here, and again, they will be covered in more detail in subsequent webinars. So we talked about all the good things, and I did say at the start that I was going to give you a balanced picture of this and talk also about some of the challenges. And the first challenge that most people face, or the first concern people have, is around security. And it's right to give thought to that, because it is undoubtedly a fact that your data will be stored at a service provider. It will not be stored, so that's computers that are not on your premises, computers not directly under your control. As I've already said, there is a whole webinar coming up on security, so I'm only going to address it briefly here today. But a couple of points I would make. Firstly is that, as we saw in the video, the security measures that cloud service providers put in place in their data centers are pretty extensive. We saw in the video the sort of physical security, there's the barrier across the road to get in, the intercom, the fingerprint scanning, the retina scanning, a lot of physical security around data centers to actually stop, to ensure that people, you don't get unauthorized people actually accessing, physically getting inside the data centers. What they didn't show in the video, but is also all the electronic security that goes around it, all the networking security that goes around it. So we've all seen in the media that it's not infallible. There are security lapses. Data does find its way into the wrong hands. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't, because we know it does. But what I would say is that the security that's in place around major cloud service providers is way more extensive and sophisticated than any security any small business could ever consider investing in or afford. So my start point on this is that the security of a data center and of a cloud service is actually, if you look at it sort of dispassionately, is actually way more secure than having a server in your own office. Although I do understand the emotional feeling of security that you can see the server in the corner of your office, whereas when it's in a data center you can't see it. I understand that, and that's some amount of human nature. But when you look at it objectively, the security around data centers and the data in data centers is orders of magnitude more secure than data sat on servers in your office, or indeed data sat on our own private laptops. Security is not the only challenge. There are challenges around quality of service. In particular, if you have a poor internet connection, then the service you're going to experience will be degraded. There are considerations around provider lock-in. So when you start using a particular provider's service, a particular software service, then how easy or otherwise is it for you to get the data out of that service if you want to move it somewhere else? There are things to be considered around application support. So where are you going to get support from your application, particularly if you're using more sophisticated applications, because as we've already said, the cloud model is a self-service model, so support tends to be either self-service, so frequently asked questions or forums on the internet, or via maybe chat type facilities. You won't be getting sort of human consultants turning up and helping you. You may think that's a good thing, you may think that's a bad thing, but the support is different from the support that's on offer if you're buying software to install on your server on your own premises. It's more difficult in general to customize the applications. So to take an extreme example, if you want to have Google Mail work in a different way from the way it works, well, that's just bad luck. It works in the way that Google provide it to you. In the case of Google Mail, that's who cares? But when we start thinking about more sophisticated applications, particularly things like CRM applications, ERP applications, things like that, the ability or otherwise to customize them is one of the considerations when considering whether to use a cloud-based service or perhaps a more traditional on-premise service. Similarly, it can be more difficult to integrate cloud services either one with another or with other applications, particularly if those applications are existing ones on your premises. Those latter, those sort of bottom 3 or 4 points there are quite significant in some scenarios and not in others. It's really on a case-by-case basis. So what I would say on those areas is that if you are considering cloud, particularly cloud applications, and want to explore some of those in more detail, then please contact us on the Optimizing Business Broadband program, because that's one of the areas where we are able to offer the face-to-face support that I talked of. Okay, I'm aware that time's running a little bit short, so I'm going to flip through 2 or 3 slides now, and really I want to leave you with this one, and this one says that the bottom line of all of this is that you need to be able to trust your cloud provider. So there's no magic answer to all to the issues that we just discussed on the previous slide, so the issues of security, quality of service and so forth. So what it comes down to is doing your homework, talking to people, checking out information on suppliers' websites, asking other people who use the service, all of those kind of things, to make sure that you are ultimately comfortable signing up for and using the cloud service provider that you are thinking of using. Now, that may sound a little bit negative. It's not meant to sound negative at all, because I strongly believe that using cloud and cloud services is the right thing to do for small businesses because of all the advantages we talked about. But I do implore you to do your homework so that you do understand where the data centers are, what security measures are in place, what rights you have to use the data, what customization is available, all of those things. Check those things out before you sign up for a cloud service provider, because if you have that knowledge, you have that information, that is what will help you feel comfortable and build that trust that using that cloud service is the right thing to do. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your attention today. If we can be of any further assistance through the Optimizing Business Broadband program, please do contact us. All the contact details are on the website, and I hope to look forward to welcoming you on future webinars in this series. Thank you very much.